You're watching Kenosha Community Media.
Good morning and welcome, everybody. My name is Todd Battle. I'm the president of the Kenosha Area Business Alliance. We're a county-wide economic development organization, and along with several partner agencies, we've been involved in starting a downtown development organization. You'll hear from several of the partners involved in it, a few of them that aren't up here this morning. I see Lou Molitor from the Kenosha Area Chamber of Commerce and Deanna Goodwin from the Kenosha Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, who have also been instrumental in putting this partnership together, so thank you. I also noted several elected officials in the audience. We just want to welcome you and say thank you for attending and supporting our efforts. I saw State Representative Todd Onstad. I saw County Executive Jim Cruiser. I saw Mayor Keith Bosman, who's on our panel, and Alderman Bob Johnson. So thank all of you for being here as well. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the second annual State of the Downtown report. We're going to talk to you a little bit about how things are going with Downtown Kenosha Inc. and some of our downtown development initiatives. And as we do that, at first I'm going to welcome up Carol Schweinfurth from the Kenosha Women's Club to give a welcome. Carol?
Thank you, Todd. And we'd like to welcome you back to our beautiful facilities. I hope you've had a chance to walk around, go upstairs, take a look at the refurbishing we've done. I know I talked to you last year about all the refurbishing being done. The next year and a half is going to be a very busy time for the Women's Club of Kenosha, because although our members don't look like it, we are going to be 125 years old on April 29th, 2016, which isn't that far away. We would like to make big plans for that. And just an interesting fact, when the club was started, Kenosha had 6,500 people. They had 4 paved blocks, not streets, but blocks in the city. It was established as a literary and social club by Miss Grace Howe, the daughter of one of Kenosha's pioneers. They concentrated their efforts on the cultivation of music, literary works, and the arts. However, little did they know they would soon be embroiled in what they called pauperism, prohibition, and women's suffrage, which almost split the club in half. As we celebrate our 125th birthday, we hope that the city will celebrate with us, because this is quite an achievement. The written history of our club includes the history of Kenosha and the world. All we have to do is read the reports of the presidents going back to 1892. This book starts. Our Quilt of Valor program, as you can see a quilt up here, very feminine. This one will go to a female veteran. We have given out, as of this date, 12 Quilts of Valor to Kenosha veterans, 3 to female veterans, and 9 to male veterans. These are handmade quilts given to celebrate those that we honor for giving their service to our country from World War II, Afghanistan, Vietnam, and Iraq. On October 31st, I'm going to do a little commercial. On October 31st, which is Halloween, the Kenosha Junior Women's Club and the Women's Club of Kenosha will be hosting a Coffin Bangers Ball. It's a fundraiser for the Kenosha Dream Playground, and we feel that this project is going to draw from the outside areas and bring people in, as it will enable children of all abilities to play side by side on equipment geared just for each individual. So please help our club and the juniors make this night a success. For $25, you will get food, drink, entertainment, and there will be a best costume contest, and you will step into a different world, a world of ghosts and vampires, headless waiters, and witches. On November 29th, the club will host a historic holiday open house. We are planning a mother-daughter Christmas tea from 12 to 2 and an open house from 2 to 4. So bring your children to see all the Christmas trees and decorations. We are decorated from the top floor all the way down. We sincerely hope that the downtown businesses, although we're not a business, will look at us as an asset to the downtown area. And we sure thank you for choosing the club for your meeting this morning.
And next up this morning, I'm going to welcome Mayor Keith Bosman up here, and he's going to address with a quick update. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Todd. Well, thank you, Todd. I've been given 5 minutes to catch up on what happened in the last year. So I'm used to going to meetings where time doesn't matter. 3-4 hours, nothing. So I'm going to try to stay on script here this morning, but just gaff me if I get a little too long here. We've had the plan in front of us now for 2 years, and government works slowly, and we're no exception. But I think we're making progress. There were 24 main initiatives that was on the to-do list. Some short-term, medium-term, long-term. And I think we're probably into more than half of them. Some of them have already been completed. And I think when I look at the to-do list, a common theme that kind of runs through it is adding value to the downtown and bringing more people to the downtown. So we've really focused on, if it answers the question, does it bring more people to the downtown? And the answer is yes, then yeah, let's go forward. Let's try to do it. Let's find a way to make this happen. The chambers and the CVBs kind of stress this live, work, play thing. So I thought I'd divide it up into those 3 categories and see where we go. For my wife, shopping is play, and eating is also play. So we'll keep those in that category also. All right, let's talk live in the downtown. Virginia Towers obviously sat there for many years. They're in the middle of leasing up some of their space now. As of a couple of days ago, they were about half full. So that's on the way. 55 and older, 35 units added to the downtown. The Fifth Avenue Lofts project at the Wells site, we expect that building to come down in the fall here, and construction, remediation and construction to start soon after. And a year from now, they'll be leasing up space. The YMCA project moving forward, again, same timeline. We expect construction to start before the end of the year, and again, leasing up by the end of next year. So 45 units. So that's 140 units that we're going to be adding to the downtown right along that 58th Street corridor, where I think we need probably the most help. Let's talk Parcel A. Anybody know where Parcel A is? Okay, that's Parcel A. Yeah, I know, Dan. Parcel A is that piece of green space right at kitty corner from Jockey by Trolley Dogs. In the plan, it's listed as kind of a gathering place, perhaps a plaza. We see it more as a place for development. We need to fill that gap between Harbor North and 55th Street, between the Jockey store. We need some buildings in there. And the idea is we're in talks with a developer to develop that piece with residential. The plaza in the future would be, when City Hall goes away, to expand Veterans Park, where we have the peanut butter and jam concerts. That would be our central plaza. Let's talk work. The commercial loan program that we instituted this year has its first taker. I believe Mike's Chicken and Donuts doing a rehab on a building. The Heritage House. We're very close on this. It's taken a long, long time. There's a lot of details. There's a lot of complicated financing that's going into this project, but we see it happening. We're very close. I can see construction in the spring, 50 to 100 jobs in the downtown. The Metro Station, I know Frank is here this morning. Again, we're very close to a deal where we're going to have kind of a destination Chuck E. Cheese with a railroad theme, and I'll call it that. And Frank will be moving into the Metro Station in short order. And let's talk play. We have been encouraging more events in the downtown, from big events to small events, moving them around to different areas, be it Simmons Island, be it Kennedy Park. Celebration Place works nice for the bigger events, but we'd also like to do more programming at Library Park. Peanut Butter and Jam, of course, has been very successful. Harbor Market at the museum campus and Dewey Plaza. Celebrate America, which again Frank has been doing with the city for the last several years, has been a great addition to the 4th of July mix. I want to introduce Chris Coachman is here. Chris, can you stand up? Chris is our special events coordinator and works tirelessly on these events. So she's someone to know. Recently, we've added the Fall Fest. Last year, we had the Winter Fest with the ice carving, which I thought was very well done and very popular. This weekend, we've got Cheesapalooza that kind of ties in with the car show that, again, Frank will be producing for us. Lastly, I just want to talk about gathering places and the plazas. I mentioned a couple of them. Excuse me. I see 5 of these areas in the downtown. Simmons Island, we're doing some work there now, and we will be doing more work over the next several years to make it a focal point in the downtown and on the lakefront. Celebration Place is a great place for the larger festivals. We'll continue to tweak that to make it more inviting. The museum campuses and Dewey Plaza work well for the Harbor Market, which continues to grow. The Veterans Park, I mentioned expanding that once City Hall goes away and making that the central plaza in the city, and then programming it at Library Park. Let's talk the streetcar. We're going to bring this up for a vote perhaps in the next 30 to 45 days. I'm not exactly sure when. I think everybody knows the issues. The new alders have been on board for 5 months now, and we should be able to go forward with a vote. I see the streetcar as connecting all of these plazas, all of the parking areas, and being able to circulate people in the downtown, and I think it adds a lot of value. I think progress will be much more visible in 2015. It's taken a long time to get through some of these very complicated deals, but we'll see visible movement, visible improvement in 2015. I would rather spend money on these projects to make the empty buildings more valuable than to spend money tearing them down and remediating them and then building something else. It's very expensive to do that. So hopefully these improvements will add value to the buildings that are as yet we haven't found a use for, and we'll see some improvement in that in 2015 also. So thanks for the time to be here. That's it in a nutshell. Could probably talk for an hour about what's going on, but we have some great guests here to talk about other things. So thanks for your support. Thanks for being here this morning.
Good morning. We're grateful to have such a wonderful mayor who's engaged in our entire community, but especially engaged in downtown. And of course, it also helps that City Hall is downtown. I want to thank each and every one of you, first and foremost, for being here. Your presence here shows that you're engaged in our community. Our community is certainly stronger for your collaborative efforts and in getting involved in activities. So thank you. Those of you who know me, and for many of you that don't, I pretty much say things as they are. I try to be polite about it. When I'm smart and I heed the advice of my wife, I say nothing at all. But it wouldn't work too well this morning. So today, when people ask me, they say, Paul, how are we doing downtown? You know, how did we do this past year? I answer very candidly. It's the only way I know how. And I say, you know, from a broad perspective, the big overview, tremendous positive momentum. We have the involvement and engagement of so many of our community organizations, the volunteers, the energy. In my 15 years of being involved in downtown, and I'm getting to be an old timer now, but in my 15 years of being involved in downtown, it has never been more exciting than it is right now. So that's the good news. Now, I also say we took some, 10 or 12 steps forward, and we took 3 or 4 steps backward. And that's when I kind of get that inquisitive look, what are those steps? And so what I'd like to do today is just take you through those steps forward and those steps back. So steps forward. We took some very basic steps. We formed a Downtown Kenosha Inc. board. And in fact, our first meeting, I think, was November, so it's not even a year old. But what's important with that board is it's a county-wide board. It's a county-wide representation on the DKI board. It's a county-wide effort for the revitalization of our downtown. It is everyone's downtown, and we want everyone involved in its revitalization. So an important foundational step. We also submitted to the IRS the 501c3, I think it's called. And as tedious as that sounds, it's an important foundational step again because it gets us designated as a nonprofit. So all of the individuals and companies, and you're going to see later today how many people are stepping up to fund this effort, it gives them a tax deduction for that, which is wonderful. So we've taken some fundamental steps. One of the biggest is we formed our Main Street committees, our 4 Main Street committees. And those committees are where all the work's going to get done. We're going to funnel everything through DKI through those 4 volunteer committees. It's the Main Street approach. It's a tried and proven approach to revitalizing downtowns. The Main Street program kind of gives you a very structure, just like a businessman would. You've got these objectives. Here's your work plans. Here's who's responsible. This is what we're going to do in 2015, for instance, as we develop the plans for 2015. That's our business model for 2015, and it keeps us on track. It keeps us from getting off track because we've committed to doing those activities. So those committees are very important. So the rest of the steps I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about as they relate to those committees. So our design committee just completed the First Impressions Initiative. And the First Impressions Initiative, we had a dozen of our own volunteers go down to Joliet, Illinois. And Joliet, Illinois, believe it or not, and Kenosha have a lot in common. Joliet's the 4th largest city in Illinois, and we're the 4th largest city in Wisconsin. Joliet has about 148,000, and we have about 100,000. Our family medium income, our unemployment rates, all of those are comparable. They're almost identical, ironically. And Joliet, like Kenosha, was a manufacturing-based economy in the years past, and then kind of making that transition into a modern economy. So a lot in common. So our volunteers went down. They spent a day and a half in Joliet. They shopped, they dined, they actually stayed overnight to experience the nightlife and had breakfast. And likewise, a dozen volunteers from Joliet came up to Kenosha. And every one of the Joliet volunteers, it's their first time ever in Kenosha, first time ever in downtown. So it truly was First Impressions. And First Impressions is an organized approach to capture those first impressions, capture some recommendations and everything. And we're kind of still digesting the feedback of all of that. But it was a great initiative. We're thankful to all the volunteers. We're particularly thankful to Miss Amy Greel from UW Extension, and she led the entire effort. So a great initiative. Streetscape improvements. I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts. We're going to put in 10 new bike racks. We're going to put in 20 new trash containers, the nice ones. We have the funding for all of those, and we have the funding for new downtown Kenosha pole banners that we're going to put throughout downtown and fix the brackets. But we're still designing that banner, so it'll take a little bit longer on that. Promotions committee. Our promotions committee had our first ever winter event. It was a Snow Days Festival. It was on the second Saturday promotion in February. Wonderful event. We had 30 downtown businesses commit to sponsoring an ice sculpture, amazing ice sculptures done by Art Below Zero, and we had a great turnout, and it was just a wonderful event. And it gave us an event for the first time between January and spring. You know, we didn't really have anything to put in there. And we're especially thankful to the city and Chris Coachman for helping partner with us and put that event together, and we hope to repeat it in 2015. So, other events that happen downtown. Now, promotions, everybody kind of often thinks that DKI, you know, their downtown organization, is involved and we run all the events. And actually, the vast majority of downtown events are organized, run, and executed by others. So we help facilitate it, we help promote it, we encourage it, we help communicate to the business owners what's happening and all of that, but they're run by other organizations. The good news is the downtown events keep growing and growing and growing. And events such as the Wisconsin Marathon, the Harborside Market, Taste of Wisconsin, Blooming Bands, Grill Games, the Blues and Jazz Festival, Dog Days, car shows, of which we have 2 this year. There's one Saturday, and you're all invited. It's free. And with our history in Kenosha, with the automotive history, the car shows can be a phenomenal event. Phenomenal event. Years ago, Zion had 100,000 people over 3 days on a car show that they did. So we've got a lot of high aspirations, but we think we can continue to build on our rich automotive history. Cheesapalooza, the Fall Festival, Lighten Up, goes on and on and on and on. Wonderful. These events are fun for us. These events help enrich our lives living in this community, and we're very thankful for all the organizations that put them on. And again, our piece in that is just to help facilitate that. We want these events to be successful. We want them to be as successful as they can be. Advertising. Our promotions committee is also in charge of advertising. And this year we designed and developed our downtown jingle. And so with that, I'd like to try to play it. If the audio works, we're going to try to play our downtown jingle for you.
Downtown Kenosha, shopping and dining that's boutique and unique. Downtown Kenosha, for a break by the lake or a night on the town. Downtown Kenosha, museums, art, theater, no need to go far. Culture, fun, and ride in the streetcar. Love what's local, downtown Kenosha.
Okay, we use our downtown jingle to kind of communicate events, activities, and attributes of our lakefront downtown. And with that, I want to play another one for you to show how we utilize the jingle.
Downtown Kenosha.
Hi, this is Deanna for Downtown Kenosha. If you haven't been downtown to eat lately, you might be surprised at the wide variety of culinary delights, all within a few city blocks. Historic diners and coffee shops perfect for breakfast, lunch, or brunch, all with mouth-watering comfort food and some of the greatest coffee around. The downtown Kenosha dining scene also includes bistros, sandwich shops and restaurants featuring seafood, pizza, authentic Italian, Irish, and Chinese fare. For dessert, from one end of downtown to the other, you'll find tempting specialty shops with gourmet popcorn, premium ice cream, candy, and fresh pastries. All these delicious dining destinations are steps from the lakefront and Harbor Park, where every Saturday you'll find farm-fresh produce, meats, cheeses, and much more at the Kenosha Harbor Market. Visit downtownkenosha.org for more information.
Love what's local, downtown Kenosha.
So we run those commercials about 20 times a week, various segments. There's 15-second, 30-second donuts, all of that, on WLIP 1050, if you want to tune in and hear them. And that voiceover is our own Deanna Goodwin. Deanna is a board member and marketing director for the Kenosha Area Visitors and Convention Bureau. So a great initiative, and we want to particularly thank Lou Aceto from SJ Crystals and Mike Hirsch from WLIP, who led the effort to put that jingle together. Our marketing campaign, we refined and further developed our marketing campaign. And our marketing campaign is pretty simple. It's shopping, dining, arts, and entertainment. Shopping, dining, arts, and entertainment. And we want to show experiences of people enjoying those things, kind of convey that experience downtown. So it's shopping, dining, arts, and entertainment. So that's what you're going to see all our advertising and marketing geared towards. And as part of that, our messaging, we have the Love What's Local that you heard within the jingle. So great job there, and we're very thankful for the promotions committee for that. The next two committees I'm going to combine into one. It's organization and economic development. First, we did an ambassador program. We have a fun, energetic group of ambassadors who have been trained and volunteer to help us help people downtown, both locals and tourists, on different events and giving out brochures and helping to direct, and people want to know where they could go to eat and what kind of fare restaurants have and all of that. So we're very thankful. We got the ambassador program up and running. We're thankful to those volunteers. They're very a fun group. We had 36 new businesses start up. You know, our urban downtown really is a new business incubator. It's a great place for business startups. It's a low cost of entry for overhead, and so we had roughly 36 new businesses come downtown. We supported and helped pass, and Todd was instrumental in this with Wisconsin, getting a 20% historical tax credit for revitalizing historical buildings in downtowns, and it's in Wisconsin, and it was passed. And it's a wonderful initiative. It's going to help communities throughout the state, but selfishly for us, it's going to help us a lot with respect to the KYF and the Heritage House. It's a 20% historical tax credit just within the state of Wisconsin for historical buildings, and tremendous. And we thank Todd and all those that were involved. We got a lot of letters of support, and et cetera, for that. And it's just a wonderful initiative. It's really going to give returns to the state of Wisconsin, I think. We implemented a revolving loan fund. The mayor mentioned it. $1 million. It's a big deal. $1 million geared towards commercial businesses in our downtown. And the beauty of a revolving loan is it's not just a one-time thing. Every year it's going to continue to go, and as it gets paid back, it's more funds, and that loan grows and loan grows. Because it's a fundamental step, but it's a step it's sustainable. It's a sustainable benefit that's going to help us every year. So you can see we made some great steps forward, some big, some small, some fundamental steps. We also took some steps backward. And I say, you know, candidly, we took 2 big steps backward with the loss of our executive director, Ms. Violet Ricker. We are enthusiastically so grateful for Violet and for her many efforts on our behalf. She was involved in so many initiatives that have yet to bear fruit that I can't talk about that from a time standpoint. But just one of those initiatives that she did, she went out and raised, without very little involvement, the funds to start Art Space, the first phase of Art Space. So it's a kind of a pay-as-you-go analysis, and it brings in Art Space, which is just a tremendous nationally company that fosters artists living and workspaces in communities throughout America, and just a wonderful organization. They have a one in Waukegan that's the closest to us. But it takes multiple years to do. It's a process to go through to make sure we have the support in the artist community and all of that. But she got that started, and we're thankful again for her for that effort. That's just kind of one example of some of the things that she was involved with. And what we saw with Violet, though, we saw how important it is to have a full-time executive director for our community. How important this position is. It really can make a huge difference. You know, the other step back, I'd say, you know, we lost a couple dozen businesses. I think we're going to see the actual numbers, but I think we kind of took 3 steps forward on the businesses and 2 steps back. But we net up each year, it seems like, so it's a net positive. And the last little step back, I'd say, is we lost just a little focus, on this plan, the Downtown Strategic Development Plan. And those of you that were involved, you remember this was quite a process we put together when putting this plan. It was a public process. There were a lot of public meetings. There were surveys. There were focus groups of shop owners, focus groups of developers. A lot of involvement by design to get everybody's input. And we were very fortunate to have just an excellent urban planning and design firm, the Lakota Group, the hot firm I call them. They're just a wonderful boutique firm. And they put it all together for us in this plan. So they laid it all out for us. They did a wonderful job. And it's time to execute this plan. We need to stay focused, and it's time to execute this plan. Now, on page 172, in the first position, under major recommendations, listed in high priority, is, and I know you can't see it, even with my glasses it's hard to read, but it's a streetcar expansion. And I want to tell you, the Downtown Kenosha, Inc. organization is unanimous in our support for this transformational project. And you want to say, I'm just going to spend, I could go on for hours talking about streetcar, but I'll just review about 4 or 5 reasons why DKI is so supportive of this project and how important it is as a piece of this plan. Again, on page 172, with all the initiatives, it's sitting in the first space. Our streetcar expansion will service 85% of our downtown businesses versus just 5% today. So 85% of our businesses. It's a phenomenal rate of return. So as a businessman, ROI is just incredible. We already have the maintenance barn, we have the 7 cars, all we have to do is lay tracks. And Kenosha, believe it or not, our streetcar system, our first one, is considered the most economical installation in the country, of all the streetcar installations in the country, and there's more to come. There's 85 cities and towns that are applying for the process to get the transportation funds that we already have to execute this project. But of all of those projects that have gone in, and there's been dozens of them, Kenosha has been the most economical, listed as the most economical. Thanks to the city and the transit department, they've really done a wonderful job. Our expansion will also be, it'll be number 2. It'll be the lowest cost per mile expansion in the country. So we do a lot with a little in Kenosha. When you think streetcar, I want you to think of all of these initiatives. The streetcar really is our catalyst for new bricks and mortar. New bricks and mortar. So I want you to think of this when someone mentions the streetcar, because it is what's going to drive new bricks and mortar. There's a lot of wonderful things in our plan. We're going to do some great streetscape improvements. We're going to do some sign changes about way to do signs and wayfinding. Wonderful initiatives that we're going to execute. But the only one in there that's the real catalyst to drive new bricks and mortar is the streetcar expansion. The return on investment of a streetcar project isn't in the ridership at all. It's in the real estate developments that come along the tracks. Those real estate developments pay taxes not just once, but every year for decades. And that's why all the studies show a 10 to 20% return of that initial cost, and it's all driven by real estate taxes from the bricks and mortar. So it's huge. And then finally, our streetcar really is our number one most marketing and advertised feature with downtown. If you read about articles in other Chicago papers, Milwaukee papers, blogs, etc., Facebook posts, they're always showing the streetcar. It shows up everywhere when they reference downtown Kenosha. So we don't have the luxury of having a big budget. In fact, we have a tiny budget to advertise and do commercials like some of the Michigan seaports do, and some of the towns, like Galena and Illinois, where they actually air commercials to attract tourism to their communities. We don't have that luxury, but our streetcar really is our marketing plan. It is a huge, we get so much free publicity, it really brings us to the forefront of that. So it's another reason for us to expand that streetcar. And the last thing I was going to say is tourism. I want you to think right now, what do you think tourism dollar spending was last year in our own backyard in Kenosha County? Think of a number. If you're close, you get your prizes. You can go to the free car show on Saturday. But tourism, the number was $168 million. $168 million a year. And it's growing at about a 4% clip. So tourism is a big deal for our community. And we want to invest, and the streetcar is an investment to make sure those people come back here versus all the other alternatives and all the other advertisements that are vying for their attention to take them elsewhere. So another reason that we're really supportive of the streetcar. With that, I'd like to conclude. I really want to thank you for coming, for spending the time, for being engaged. I want to thank all our volunteers. The energy, like I said, has never been better. In the 15 years I've been involved in downtown, never been better. We took some step forward. We took some giant steps back. we'll persevere, we'll go on, and thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce Todd Battle, President of CABA.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Really good overview of some of the progress made downtown and as well as some of the challenges. I guess if I could sum it all up in terms of our thought process about how we're doing downtown, it echo a lot of what Paul said. And the thing I'd probably add is I would say we probably remain as committed as ever to how important downtown revitalization is to Kenosha overall. We made a lot of good progress this year. There were some stumbling blocks. We'll talk a little bit briefly more about that. But I think, if anything, it's reinforced how important downtown is to the overall image and brand and view that people have of our community. So we remain as committed as ever to making sure that we continue to move the flywheel forward, make progress, steady progress over time, and continue to put downtown in a position that is going to continue to have positive momentum and success. I'm just going to give a touch on a few highlights. I know that Mayor and Paul did a really good job of covering many of these things, so I'll do it in a quick way. Paul mentioned this, 36 new businesses have started since we last met about a year ago, have come into the downtown or started an establishment downtown. There's a list of them. Number of key projects underway on the housing side, the Virginia Towers, the residences at Library Park, and the Fifth Avenue lofts are at the top of the list. Couple of new rehabs of buildings or redos of restaurants. The Circa on 7th facility opened. Manja underwent a significant facelift, and what was Pazos is now going to be converted into another Mike's establishment. So those are some of the new adds to that element. The Heritage House, a few years ago we were talking about, as a strategic move, trying to get funds to demolish the building. We thought it was beyond repair, and we really wanted to put the community in a position to attract new development, and we just felt like that was an eyesore. I think as more and more people lobbied for historic preservation and the ability to try and save that building, we ultimately stumbled across a really skilled historic rehab development company that has been very successful in other communities in securing a number of complicated tax credits and other mechanisms to do historic rehab. They're really hard to pencil these projects out. They don't make economic sense unless you can secure some of those credits. And Gorman and Company is, a fair amount of the way down the path to trying to put together a financing plan to rehab this building. They'd like to convert the existing structure into 15 luxury suites and build next to it a more modern hotel structure that would have about 60 plus rooms. And so their plan would be to restore the current building and turn this into a boutique hotel, which I think would be an absolute home run in downtown Kenosha. The indoor market, that has been a very successful thing in Kenosha in terms of promoting the city and showing some of the best that it has to offer. For a long time, it's been talked about, could we leverage the fact that we have such a successful weekend, summer, Saturday market and do something more with it. A study is now underway to look at the possibility of a year-round indoor market and how that concept could play out. So that's in process. We talked a little bit about, Paul shared the jingle, we've talked a little bit about some of the marketing improvements. Thanks again to Deanna and the CVB for some of their help as volunteers on this, but significant improvements to the Downtown Kenosha website and a lot of increase in traffic and visitors and fans on our social media sites. We capitalized $1 million downtown revolving loan fund. We funded the first project. And like Paul mentioned, the really good thing about our revolving loan fund is it's capacity building. If managed successfully and well, loans are made out, they're returned with principal and interest, and they're loaned over and over again, and this fund just continues to build. So really good kind of capacity building move for us here. Also, Downtown Kenosha, Inc., the organization is really funded by 3-year commitments from the city, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Chamber, the BID, and CABA with its support from Kenosha County. We've decided to fund this organization. We've all made 3-year commitments, but we also have to have an eye towards future sustainability. So we've started some fundraising with private sector companies and corporations in the area, and happy to report that we're getting some takers, and we're starting to build a little bit more sustainability for this organization long term. And then I think one of the things that we think really puts downtown in a position to be successful is the overall economic environment in Kenosha County is improving tremendously, and the last few years have been nothing short of phenomenal in terms of our economic development. In the last 18 to 24 months, we've announced projects that are going to bring about 4,000 new jobs into the community, about $800 million of capital investment, and nearly 6.5 million square feet of new development or absorption. So there is a lot of momentum with things like Amazon and Kenall and Incinerator and Niagara Bottling and Uline and all of these firms choosing to come to Kenosha County, expand here, grow here, hire people here. So the overall environment for the county is definitely improving, and the trend is very positive. And that's why I say I think downtown becomes even more of a priority and even more of an asset that we should be leveraging to improve the image of the community and make our community more attractive and more inviting for newcomers, visitors, and people that have lived here for a long time. I think it's an asset that we need to kind of continue to polish up. And lastly, probably, Paul mentioned, we're at right now is we are in the process of doing a search for a new executive director. We've advertised for the position. We've received a number of resumes, probably in the neighborhood of 3 dozen, and we'll start interviewing probably in the next 1 to 2 weeks. We'll, in earnest, start the interview process, and the goal would be within 30 to 60 days to have a new quarterback on the team, so to speak, to run our downtown Kenosha program. So, that's just kind of an overview of what we've been working on. I guess the other thing that I'd like to do before I close and introduce Scott is just thank all of the people that have been involved in that. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Deanna and the CVB and Zorb at the city. They've been kind of very key volunteers. Our staff at CABA, a lot of them have stepped up as we've been without an executive director for several months and just taken on extra load. And there are a number of tireless volunteers, and you've heard from a few of them today. You're going to hear from Kevin Irvin at the close. A number of volunteers that, they have businesses, they have day jobs, they have other things to do, but they're very passionate and committed to Kenosha and its downtown, and they're incredibly involved and passionate about having success with this effort, and they're given tremendous amount of time and energy, and it's much appreciated. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and then I would also then like to introduce Scott Freres. Scott's a principal with the Lakota Group. Scott and Daniel Grove were the key partners in that firm that led our development of our downtown plan. And Scott's back with us a couple years later to check in on us a little bit, but then also, as he knows some of the things we're working on, share a little bit of insight and information on other communities that might be benchmarks or examples to look at that are trying to do similar things and how they're doing it and what's working, and maybe some ideas for us. So I'm going to introduce Scott Freres. Thanks, Scott.
Appreciate being here today. My name is Scott Freres, principal at the Lakota Group, head of the hot firm that we were described as, so that was a very nice compliment. 2 years later, back in town, have been listening to the conversation this morning. I thought before I jump into the topic that I like to speak on today, which is really placemaking, and I want to twist the conversation of the strategic master plan to a different type of thinking in terms of placemaking, what we're seeing and what we're hearing on the outside world, because we want to share some of our thoughts, what we're hearing and doing on the outside, and then bring that back to Kenosha. 2 years, listened to a lot of conversation this morning. You're a success story, and it's hard to see it because the success is in emotional capital, And success is in underground, what I call underground infrastructure, the things that you don't see that are building upon the plan. Paul mentioned a page and all the ideas and thoughts and the key strategies that we outlined in that master plan. They're all out there. But there's also a page in that master plan, if you dive into it a little bit, that says every year you need to revisit the plan and adjust and retweak. That's what a master plan is. A master plan isn't static. It's a living document. It's a document to move from. Times change, people change, positions change, economies change, markets change. And the plan has to be able to adapt to those things. And you are doing that. A good plan moves in a lateral fashion, not in a linear fashion, meaning that it has setbacks, it has changes, politics, economies, markets, what have you, people, but you're moving forward. There's energy, there's positive spirit, there are changes in place, there's momentum, there's the building blocks are all going underneath it. As Paul said, the trolley line is infrastructure to build upon value for the community. That's so important to the process, and it's so easy to get mirrored down in the fact that where are all the bricks and mortar, where are all the pretty things that we're supposed to have. You are building them. And the only way you can see it is for me to tell you, because I'm on the outside working for all the other communities that are doing the exact same thing. And I can tell you that a lot of them are in the same position, and some are way further behind you, because they don't have the emotional capital that this community has and has put into this. So the success story behind this master plan, and if I were to do a check in a report card today, I would say you're probably about a B plus, A minus in terms of the process. You've got the people in place, a couple little setbacks, not a big deal. You've got money moving, okay? There's money out there that's moving in different places. You heard about it, and it's still out there. You have people that are committed, interested. You've got economic development, and as for much as you say it's all out there on the hinterlands, it's important because that hinterlands where the money and where the action is what's going to help drive people to downtown. We talked about that in the master planning process, driving people to the downtown, to the lake. That's the big asset for the downtown that we want to build upon. And that kind of takes me to today, which is our discussion. Daniel and I talked about what we're going to talk about in Kenosha today. We see it and say positive, positive, positive. You got to look beyond yourself to see that. We thought we'd share a little discussion about placemaking, what it is, how it relates to downtown Kenosha, and then what's some case studies that we're seeing out there that we're tracking relative to a couple of the initiatives that Todd and Paul talked about previously with regards to indoor markets, the trolley line, and then art space, art culture. I could talk all day long, but I have a very short period of time this morning. I want to make sure I hit a couple key things because it's really important to give you a different perspective of things. Placemaking is a topic that we've been really focusing our energies on. Master planning processes are very important. What we hear loud and clear, and again back to the success story of this community, is loud and clear, we don't want another plan that's going to sit on the shelf. Don't give us another plan. We don't need another plan. You don't have a plan that's sitting on the shelf. You got a plan that people are actually moving. Multiple people have copies of that plan and they're moving it forward. Everybody should have a copy of that plan. If not, have a little cheat sheet of all the things that are in there, because that's what drives placemaking. And placemaking is a way of really, let me get you there, really letting people know what your community is all about at so many levels. We talk about urban design, sense of place, smart growth, context-sensitive solutions. These are all the buzzwords that are out there today in the planning world, the world we live in. But this is the world that the economic people that want to develop, build, and improve communities are looking at. They want to see these things happening. Healthy neighborhoods, traditional design, historic preservation. Those are key things. And what happens is if you have those and you develop the right type of placemaking tools and philosophy, which is really a way of improving your community, looking at your attributes, finding what they are, and focusing your dollars into those areas. It could be public spaces, it could be transit, it could be just your marketing and promotions. But if you do it right, the money that's out there is following those things. So for instance, we'll get into it in a little bit, historic preservation. There is a huge renewed interest in historic preservation. It's no surprise that through Todd's effort and the city's effort that historic tax credits are back on the table in the state of Wisconsin, long overdue. These old buildings, if you want them restored, you got to be creative about the financing. It's just not there. So the historic tax credits are a tool to help move these initiatives forward. It doesn't solve the problem for making sure there's a good business plan to build a boutique hotel, but it certainly helps make the financing work so that it's a reality, not believable fiction. And that's part of this process. So when we developed that master plan, as we went through it, there was a really, really keen sense that when we were developing all those strategies in there, that it wasn't believable fiction. And believable fiction is, in our planner world, drawing pretty pictures that you're never going to be able to achieve because there's no money, there's no commitment, or there's no marketplace for it. So that plan, as much as it has 24 key things in it, those are real things that can happen in this community. There's teeth behind them. They change, they adapt, they morph. You have to track them on a yearly basis, but they're real. We talk about placemaking can take many forms, as I mentioned: public spaces, plazas, buildings, improved pedestrian access, public art, community branding programs, community events and markets. You're in motion on all those things. How you get that information out to the outside world is critical, and you're doing that through so many channels. Just listening to the fact that you've developed a jingle and you're moving to different medias to get that information out is really, really important in pushing it forward. You can look at it at all different levels in terms of what placemaking is, and it's important to recognize this because everybody thinks that we've got to do big projects that have success stories. Some of the biggest success stories are very small. There's a community we're working in the south suburbs of Chicago that their place, what they have built their brand upon, is about murals. They've got more murals than any other community in the country on a size basis, a per capita basis, and they've worked with a firm out of New York who comes in on a regular basis, and it's funded through local art initiatives, through business, through what they have, which is the tax increment financing district, but they utilize art as an economic development engine that creates their place. Everybody's out there to compete on what's our place, what's our mantra, what are we doing, how do we get people here. It's a handbook that everybody in the room should have. Everybody should know, everybody in this room, whether you do or don't, I think you could all tell an outside person the story of Kenosha from your perspective, but at the end of the day, there should be a common elevator speech that everybody delivers with regard to what the goal is, where we want to go with downtown Kenosha, and that's really important. That's a really important tool. It's being branded and developed as part of the initiatives and the leadership today, but it's got to be promoted more to identify opportunities. Why is it important? Well, I mentioned some of these things. It builds connections and creates common ground in the community. It gets people synergized around common themes. Collaborations, one of the greatest success stories of this process, in my opinion, and I hope you would share it, is the fact that this plan gelled a lot of personalities and people and topics together, brought people onto a common theme, common goal, and moved it forward. That's huge, huge. You don't really look at it and you don't say it's bricks and mortar, but it is huge in the process. And again, it builds back to we're all here to take what is good about downtown Kenosha and build upon it. We can look at the negatives, and that's easy to do, but there's a lot of good here to move forward with. And it's easy to get mired in just we're not moving things forward because you don't see it. So that ties back to authenticity, the idea that what we're doing is real, it's tied to this community. We go back to authenticity and we talk about this boutique hotel idea, and Paul already laid it out as I'm getting close on my time here, if not already over, but he already laid it out that these tax credits are the key to that. Looking for creative developers who understand heritage tourism and understand how to redevelop older buildings, that's unbelievable. If you can bring that type of person in, that's the key that you want to make this happen, because boutique hotels have certain business profiles, and if they can't meet them, on the cost at the end of the day of what a room costs to stay there at night, it's done. It's not about the building and renovation where it is. If they can't get the rates and they can't get the occupancies, that's part of the business thinking, it's not going to happen. You have a team that's looking at it, has identified creative funding sources, and you've got a downtown area that's saying, come on in. Same thing happening right now, and it's moving forward as part of our master plan in downtown Green Bay. They're doing the Northland Hotel, which is the same story, but they've got, I want to say, significantly more rooms that are part of this, and also a very successful project that was both of those on historic tax credits and other financing mechanisms in downtown La Crosse. So really good case studies to follow because they're happening right now, and you can see the fruits of those two areas, those two facilities to look at. How does this tie back to the future of downtown? As I mentioned, change is going to occur. Patience is a virtue, really is. Just stay focused and stay vigilant in the process. Flexibility, you got to be flexible. You got to be able to move laterally. It is not a one-directional plan. As much as it's easy to say that, and here's my tasks and go do it, recognize there's hurdles and there's bumps, and you got to move around those to keep going forward. The more partners, the more people involved, the more positive energy, the better outcome, obviously, and focus on developing a place. If I can't say enough, you're developing a place, you're not just doing a building. You're not just doing a parking lot or a park, you're developing a place. And that was the genesis of that plan. It was developing a place, a realistically achievable place. When you saw the boundary around that area, we were all very critical of the fact that you're never going to have the downtown that used to be there in terms of the overall size. So let's focus it and squeeze it down and be much smarter about where we start from and build our way back out again and get to a successful ending. And that could take years. It's not instant. It's not going to happen overnight, but that infrastructure is going in. So thank you. A-, B+, keep going, want to be your cheerleader, and I'm really happy that we can be here today and share this morning with you. Thank you.
Well, so this brings us to the end of our State of the Downtown, second annual, the second of, I hope, to be many more in the future. I'd like to thank you all for coming and showing your support here to downtown. As we like to say, the downtown truly belongs to everybody. It's not just one district that stands alone, but it's a district that the whole community should be able to have and enjoy. And though we had a setback or two this year, I think the future looks very good. As you heard Scott say, B+, A-, that's great. A lot of great projects going forward. I believe we're at a tipping point, a lot of these projects. A lot of them are catalytic. Once they happen, they're going to transform the downtown in a big way, in a big step. So I think 2015 is going to be a good year for the downtown. You're going to see some progress, some really fascinating things happening. As these projects develop, they're going to snowball. What they're going to do is they're going to attract more people to downtown. More people are going to bring more businesses, so on and so on. It's a domino effect that could only be positive, helping the economic, the desirability, and just the charm and beauty of downtown Kenosha. I'd just like to thank the mayor, the city council, all the people at CABA who do so much hard work, the Visitors Bureau who do so much hard work, the Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank Scott for coming out today and sharing his thoughts with us and his time. The Ladies Club of Kenosha, thank you very much for their gracious hospitality. We couldn't do it without them. And lastly, I'd like to just thank the volunteers who share our vision and do so much hard work here, all pushing forward to turn our downtown, which is a great downtown, but it's going to become a downtown that a great city like Kenosha deserves. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you all walking around and shopping downtown in the future. Thank you very much for coming.